The Earth is mostly ocean, and yet we've barely scratched the underwater surface of what lives and lurks below it. Sailing the seas were the life's blood of many cultures over the centuries. The oceans gave us food, transportation, riches, and a lot of death and disaster. It also gave us stories of creatures and legends that still haunt us to this day. These tales of creatures from the depths of hell, or more accurately the ocean floor, have carried on for thousands of years, and while they are terrifying, the scariest part of them may be the fact that they hold more than a ring of truth. On this episode of Mytheries, we're unleashing the Kraken, and I'm not talking about the rum. The Kraken has been a part of stories and mythology for centuries, and while many think the creature is native to Greek lore, in no small part due to the film Clash of the Titans, changing up the story of Perseus to have him fighting a version of the monster, in fact, the Kraken is from Scandinavian mythology, a people whose lives revolved around traveling on the rough waters, thanks to those amazing Viking ships. Sea monster encounters have been reported throughout history and around the world, and many of them have similar details when it comes to what the creature looks like or how it destroys ships and devours sailors. But when it comes to a name, the Kraken seems to reign supreme. The stories of the Kraken started around Greenland, with sailors talking about seeing the creature during their voyages. While many stories describe the monster with tentacles and teeth and more like a giant squid, there are other interpretations of the name that can be applied to octopuses and whales. This is the first inkling that perhaps the monster is actually more true than we would first think. In the mid-1700s, Eric Pontoppidan wrote in a natural history book about the Kraken, describing the creature being big enough to be confused with an island, and that it could create whirlpools within its wake while swimming that could take down a ship. While you think this might be far-fetched, I direct your attention to what it looks like when a whale jumps out of the water weighing a few 100,000 pounds. Another description from the late 1700s describes the Kraken like so. Gradually, Kraken ascends to the surface, and when he is at 10 to 12 fathoms, the boats had better move out of his vicinity, as he will shortly thereafter burst up like a floating island, spurting water from his dreadful nostrils and making ring waves around him, which can reach many miles. Could one doubt that this is the Leviathan of Job? Again, this description sounds very much like that of a giant whale, but the description also includes mention of the Leviathan from the Bible. The Leviathan and Kraken are sometimes interchangeable when it comes to appearance and destruction. Both are sea monsters, but Leviathan is typically shown as a serpent, yet sometimes the description can match that of a large whale or something more reptilian. While many consider these sorts of tales and encounters the stuff of history and mythology, sometimes truth can be stranger than fiction, and far more recent. Over the years, as I've read and learned more about these creatures, though, I wonder if the sea serpent description isn't more motivated by tentacles. One story from 1873 that supports my theory involved fishermen in Newfoundland that were attacked by a giant squid. They managed to get the creature to leave them alone, but they injured it enough to cut and secure 19 feet worth of tentacle to prove what happened. 19 feet. Think about that. In 2018, engineers in Scotland found the wreckage and remains of a German U-boat, UB-85. It turns out the captain and the crew were captured in 1918 by the British. When they were taken prisoner, Captain Crutch stated that his ship was unable to dive because it had been attacked by a sea monster. The description of the creature, which is similar to many of the Kraken, was that it had horns, small, deep-set eyes, and lots of teeth. The beast was so large when it engulfed the ship it tilted over. It then bit hunks out of the ship and the guns. The crew had to abandon the ship after the attack and were eventually captured. While there are many who say the story is ridiculous, there's reason to believe that there are more stories like it out there that haven't been shared. World War I had technology and ability to travel in ways never before known when it came to warfare. Anything could have been stirred up by the destruction, fighting, and outright bloodshed. It should come to no surprise, though, to fans of Nessie that this would be an area in southwest Scotland that was where the wreck was discovered. The Guardian quoted Gary Campbell, the man responsible for the official sightings record for the Loch Ness Monster, during the discovery. The area of sea where the attack took place has a history of sea monster sightings. They range from the north coast of Wales to Liverpool Bay. End quote. The stories of the Kraken and its ilk became more prominent in culture thanks to popular fiction, like many of our favorite things. One of the most well-known books to feature a Kraken-like creature is Jules Verne's classic story, 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. In the book, the advanced submarine, the Nautilus, is famously attacked by giant squid-like creatures described as devilfish. The heroes, including Captain Nemo, manage to fight off the monsters who are attacking the sub. The recreation of this scene in the Disney feature film version of the story is just as about as legendary as the Kraken itself, inspiring a theme park ride where guests inside their own mini-subs get to be attacked by the monsters. Another literary aspect of the Kraken that has over the last few decades grown in popularity and visibility is the god Cthulhu, envisioned by H.P. Lovecraft. Cthulhu is a massive creature who is linked to darkness and the sea. The elder god is all-powerful, causing madness upon seeing him, and appears to be part squid, with tentacles usually spouting forth from its enormous head. It's obvious that Lovecraft was inspired by the sea creature myths and legends when making one of his most famous creations. Cthulhu also inspired one of the best Aquaman memes ever made, just for those thinking that the DC hero has the lamest powers. Now let's go back to the Greek side of things for a moment. Everyone, or at least everyone should, know of the classic film The Clash of the Titans. It's probably the most famous version of the Kraken, and yet that's not the actual creature from that particular myth, or at least it is not named the Kraken. The Cetus was the creature that Queen Cassiopeia had to sacrifice Andromeda to in order to assuage the god's wrath, and it was this creature that Perseus defeated. It's said that Perseus used the head of Medusa to turn the creature to stone, another famous scene in the film. The location of the story is actually Ethiopia, and in the town of Joppa, there's a rock thought to be either the place that Andromeda was chained for sacrifice, or what is left of the monster itself. When you discover things like this exist, you have to wonder how the story got started, or why. That brings me back now to the comment about serpents and tentacles, because reality can be pretty damn terrifying. There really are giant squid, and they are just as terrifying as you imagine when you get a first look at one of them. They were discovered a little over 150 years ago, and while we know they are real, no one had actually been able to capture an image of them moving and living until the last 20 years. Estimates on the size of how big one of these creatures can be is near 45 feet in length. There's also the colossal squid, if you weren't worried enough about your calamari's distant cousin coming back for revenge. Colossal squid can weigh in at around 1,500 pounds, more than the giant squid. These creatures are hard to find, not surprising. The largest captured so far was in 2007, and it weighed in at nearly 1,100 pounds. It died not long after being discovered. The giant squid is still a mystery due to their natures as well as where they live. Their habitat is around 3,000 feet deep within some of the darkest areas of the ocean. Yet these creatures have existed on this planet for over 700,000 years. I've talked about the fact that the Kraken has been described as both a whale-like creature as well as a massive squid. The irony is that these two creatures of the ocean are actually enemies, with sperm whales one of the few creatures that can take on a giant squid. Turns out that the sperm whales are big calamari fans too, and eat them. There are images in art depicting these two mammoths of the water fighting it out, but evidence has actually been found of large sucker scarring on whale skin, showing that giant squids don't go down without a fight. So here we are with proof that such creatures could actually exist. But are these fairly shy and largely unseen creatures what the ancient sailors of history saw? Could this be the monster that took down a German U-boat and bit through the hull? It may be unlikely, but here's the thing. As I said at the beginning, the world is mostly covered in water. Deep, dark oceans that we have only just scratched the surface of in the last couple of centuries. These oceans are for the most part as unknown as a distant galaxy. We have yet to truly go where no man has gone before, to borrow a phrase, to see what lies in the depths. So I offer you this theory. The stories of the Kraken and its kin have been around for a long time, as we know, but we've only just discovered that giant squids really exist in the last century. But we know they've been around for a long time. But those we've encountered or found are relatively rare, but we as a species have spread out and become more prevalent over the years. So, where are they? Perhaps the older stories are those of first contact with a much larger variety of these creatures as humans ventured out across the waves of the ocean. We came into the habitat of something never seen before, and we fought back in some instances and won. In others, we weren't so lucky. But eventually, the monsters of the sea simply went back to where we couldn't or wouldn't follow. The ones we've managed to find, usually dead or dying, are the weak or young ones who ventured too close to the surface. And that leaves us with a very unsettling thought, doesn't it? If these are the small ones and the young ones, where are the strong ones at? The big ones? Are they swimming within the deep and the dark, content with their domain? What will happen when they've had enough of biding their time and want to reach out from amongst the waves? And what happens to those unlucky enough to be around when they decide to make an appearance? Thank you for watching our show. If you like what you see, please subscribe to our Joe Blow Videos channel. Tell your friends who like this sort of content and turn on the bell to receive notifications for all of our latest videos. We're an independent company and we appreciate all of your support.